Hi, I'm Manuela Cosio, and this is my timeline of Mexico. First, we're going to start with a swipe through of pre Hispanic history. I'm going to focus more on the overall cultural themes that were seen in every civilization, which ended up being of impact in Mexican culture in general. So, here we have the Olmec civilization, known for these colossal stone heads and early Mesoamerican art. Here we will see this facial representation of the pre-Hispanic human will be seen throughout every other civilization. You know, the wide noses, the big lips, the pulled down eyes. So these heads are known. This was their impact on their culture. Then we have Teotihuacan, which is known for its urban planning. The cities and towns were very carefully planned with roads and plazas and buildings arranged in a way that would reflect the cosmological beliefs of each civilization, as we will see Pyramid of the Moon, Pyramid of the Sun, and the Ciudadela. So these layouts were always they always were very planned, and they involved a certain deity, they involved a certain importance to the cosmology, to the mythology of each civilization. So Teotihuacan is one example. Then we have Maya civilization. It was developed in Peninsula Yucatan and Central America. It's known for this hieroglyphic writing, complex calendar systems, and cities like Tikal and Palenque. I want to focus mainly on on the calendar because calendars are going to be very important for the rest of the civilizations. They were used to have a timeline of their religious beliefs and rituals, so they had to determine when certain ceremonies, sacrifices, or important events were supposed to come. So that's why they created these complex character calendars, and we will see them in other civilizations. Um, we have the Toltec civilization with the city of Tula. It had a militaristic culture, architectural style, and these figures, as well as having an influence on the civilization of the Aztecs. So now we go with the Zapotec civilization. Here you can also see urban planning was important. They also had a calendar system. So as you can see, the city of Montalban still follows cultural, architectural, art, history themes that other civilizations followed. So even if they not all had the same gods, the same beliefs, the same calendars, they were all tied to this really strong culture, as we see with the Mystic civilization, which shows us um, codices, which were the way of record keep in these ancient civilizations. They had these codices that served as records of historical events, genealogies, laws, astrological observations, myths. So they were very essential to preserving the cultural memory of a civilization, as well as being a way of transmitting knowledge and education to other generations, because this way people could read them. And just like with Egyptian hieroglyphics, you could transcend information, education, everything. So it was really important, and we will see it in other civilizations too. Finally, we arrive to the Aztec civilization. The Aztec civilization has a strong center with Mexican history because today the capital, Mexico City, is where Tenochtitlan, the most important city, was based on, and it was based on with the Mexican flag emblem. A myth said that once the Aztecs arrived to a place where there was a snake, eagle eating a snake standing on a cactus, that meant that that's where they were supposed to settle. So this became the emblem of the Aztec civilization, and today is the emblem of the Mexican flag. So of course you can see how the Aztec civilization is still deeply rooted in Mexican culture, symbolism, everything. Um, the civilization was standing on top of a lake. It created this very powerful empire with military complex social structures, advanced architecture, El Templo Mayor. It was huge. Of course, this is also the civilization that faced the Spanish conquest, and it ended with the conquest of Hernan Cortes, and they lost. And this is when Mexican pre-Hispanic culture ends, and we start with Spanish colonialism. So the Spanish conquest, as we had seen before, they beat the Aztec civilization with the help of other local indigenous groups that opposed to the Aztec rule, and this is when the conquest begins. we start with the early colonial period, which was a period of establishing Spanish rule on indigenous populations and convert them to Christianity and to the Spanish rule. So this is an era where I would say it's like an era of mestizaje, where the races of indigenous and Spanish started mixing, as well as the culture. So Spanish are gonna be forcing Spanish culture into indigenous pre-Hispanic culture in order to fully conquer them. I think one great example of this is Virgen de Guadalupe appearance in 1531 CE. So basically, the Virgin appeared to a poor Indian named Juan Diego on the hill of Tepeyac. And this Virgin will become the patroness of Mexico and the continental Americas. She's a very important symbol in Mexican culture, and today she is loved and venerated by a great number of people in Mexico. So an interesting fact about this is that actually the Virgin de Guadalupe was placed by the Spanish church in order to start converting and convincing the indigenous people to start venerating her instead of venerating their goddess Tonantzin. Tonantzin was a very important goddess of pre-Hispanic culture, and she had a temple in Tepeyac. So the church basically replaced the goddess we know to the goddess they knew with this image of the Virgen de Guadalupe. And today, where the temple of Tonantzin stands, it's La Villa, which is a neighborhood in northern Mexico City, where they also keep the first image of La Virgen de Guadalupe. So I believe this is a really good example of a smart way in which the Spaniards impacted the culture in Mexico and basically used pre-Hispanic culture to create a new symbol that's very important in Mexican culture. Even today, she has darker skin, in order for indigenous people to connect more with her. And even today, the political party of the current president, Morena, is named after her because some people call her La Morena because she has dark skin. So now the Viceroyalty of New Spain is established in 1571, and the Viceroyalty will have a lot of impact in Mexican culture as well, mainly literature, etc. I think one example of this is Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. She's she became a resident in the Viceregal Court in Mexico City, and she even became a nun in order to be able to study and pursued her intellectual and literary education. So she became a poet, writer, very important in Mexican culture, very important in Mexican literature. Um, she even did this Respuesta a Sor Filotea de la Cruz, a defense of women's rights, study, and to engage in intellectual pursuits. So she not only impacted Mexican literature and Mexican intellectuality, sino she also became a leader of the feminist movement, because she really wanted to impact women's rights of being able to have an education. So this is a very positive thing that the viceroyalty impacted on the Mexican culture. Then we have the Indian Rebellion. We have the Enlightenment and Napoleon invasion of 1808. And we have the Grito de Independencia, which is basically when Father Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla issues the Grito de Dolores, declaring the Mexican War of Independence. Of course, this image of Miguel Hidalgo holding La Virgen de Guadalupe, yelling the Mexican War of, yelling that the Grito de Dolores will become very important every year. They still reenact this really important moment where the Mexicans finally declared independence against the Spanish. And then we have the Wars of Independence, um, where basically it's Mexico fighting for its independence, Mexico finally solidifying as a country, We have Porfiriato, which was a really important Mexican time period that created great advancement in art, culture, politics, architecture, everything. And then we have the post-revolutionary modern and contemporary, where we see the rise of the PRI, Institutional Revolutionary Party of Mexico, that had a very long ruling time. Here we see, of course, Frida Kahlo, the Mexican muralism, Carlos Salinas de Gortari, the rise of the narco culture, and everything that today is known and still impacts the Mexican culture. Of course, here we have different international dates, starting with the legendary founding of Rome, birth of Jesus Christ, Black Death, the Renaissance, the European Wars of Religion, American Revolution, the American Enlightenment, Napoleonic Wars, First Opium War, publication of On the Origin of Species, Second Industrial Revolution, World War One, Women's Suffrage Movement, the Great Depression, World War Two, and the invention of the nuclear bomb, moon landing, global financial crisis of 2008, and the digital era. So this is a very quick swipe through of my timeline. Thank you so much. I'm Manuela Cosio.